Thanks for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. You can find us wherever you find podcasts or listen to music. When you have an opportunity, please give us a 5-star review, write a little note, tell us how we're doing. We really appreciate it. It helps us keep this thing going. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us at Facebook at Hidden Tracks. Instagram is at HiddenTracks99, and if you'd like to send in submissions or talk to us or give us any feedback about what we're doing, our email is myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show.
To pull my foot out of their trap, just to put a knife into my back. I've got friends much better than the ones I've made through paper trails and confined spaces. Enemies, young gray enemies. I can learn to live with young gray enemies who want to dig my grave and offer to pull my foot out of the trap, just to put a knife into my back. Young gray enemies, young gray enemies,
What's up, everybody? I have Noah Green of the awesome California-based band called The Pretty Flowers. Welcome to the show, Noah.
Hey, Shane. Good to meet you.
It's
Thank you.
it's a pleasure meeting you, and I'm going to start this off with a compliment when it comes to your music, where it's very hard for people to understand, especially younger generations. You know, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so I have a huge tie to the indie music world of that era, and you seamlessly combined 4 of my favorite bands / artists to create a nostalgic sound. You know, for me, you took Guided by Voices, Teenage Fanclub, the Lemonheads, and Matthew Sweet, and created a band called The Pretty Flowers. And,
Thank you. That's a huge compliment.
yeah, and for that, and for people who may not know or understand those bands, how, you know, there was this precipice in the 90s of where indie music started to kind of take a hold and become popular for a little while. But it's, I would venture to say that it's like those 4 artists that I just named that I felt should have been bigger than any of the bands, you know, prior to them, like a Nirvana or Smashing Pumpkins or a Pearl Jam, because they were just that good at playing music and writing songs. But they never, you know, fully received the accolades they should. And now I'm talking to a band that's combined them all, that I feel the same way about, that just haven't received the accolades that it should, by creating music that can be listened to universally by anyone.
That's a huge compliment. Those 4 bands were big for me and remain big for me. Lemonheads and Teenage Fanclub, I think, in high school, and actually, I think I have a memory. I don't know if I've changed the memory over the years, but I do really remember I seem to remember in like 7th or 8th grade seeing the Teenage Fanclub video for what was the Bandwagon-esque single? The first Bandwagon-esque single with the girl in the record store climbing up to the monitor or whatever. Do you remember that one?
I don't see at that time it was like 120 minutes where you would get to watch that video, and the specter of being able to stay up until 1:30 a.m. in
Yes.
high school is
I used to 120 minutes was my Bible. I would either stay up or record it and then watch it the next morning after school. But I spent many late Sunday nights in high school and I think middle school watching 120 minutes. But the Teenage Fanclub was huge. I never got to see them live until like the last decade. And then Guided by Voices, I was into a little bit in high school, but I think Maggie Earwig was the one that that was first on my radar.
Yeah.
And that still is kind of one of the top GBV records for me. But
it's hard to keep up with a band that creates 5 albums a year. So
much. And it's and I really do. I really love Guided by Voices, but it's so overwhelming, and I just can't do everything. I don't know anyone who can really do everything. Bob Pollard. So I'll give you. I don't know if you ever heard Tobin Sprout's solo stuff. I did. I've heard it, and I know I've been like really impressed by it, but I don't own any solo Tobin Sprout records.
Yeah, I had to get the Tobin Sprout records from Japan years ago.
Oh. But yeah, Guided by Voices was I didn't really get super into them until until like the 2000s. But I kind of went back into their catalog, and they have like a big pocket of their stuff that I really love. Like, I mean, B1000 I love, but the record, the 3 or 4 records on Matador, I like those a lot. And then there's of course tons of other stuff, but those records are great. Lemonheads are. I've always loved Lemonheads. I got to see them back on it might have even been the Car Button Cloth tour, but they were a huge band for me and my friends back in high school.
How was that show? Was Evan good?
It was,
or
no, not well.
Transpired.
So the band. I remember the band being really, really good. I think it was at the Great American Music Hall in San Francisco, and I remember being very kind of underwhelmed by Evan Dando, but the band was really energetic, and they were like making up for Evan's aloofness and just like I don't know.
I always feel bad because of the simple fact that I've seen Evan or an iteration of the Lemonheads probably 6 or 7 times, and I want to say I've received 1.5 amazing shows, and that sucks so bad because it's so talented, but everybody has their demons. But it's just like, man, every time I go, I'm like, all right, this is going to be the time. And now I've given up on it. It's like,
I'm in this exact same boat. I was at the infamous the infamous Jawbreaker show.
Yeah.
A couple years back at the
I met 2 guys in Denver that were at that show because it was like 2 days later, and we were at the Jawbreaker Descendants Face to Face and Sam I Am show in Denver, and they told me, I was like, yeah, no, I'm going to see the Lemonheads in like next week when I get home. They're playing. He's like, yeah, I don't think that's happening. And then I looked and I started trying to find things. He goes, no, let me show you the video I took. And he showed me the video of him on stage, and then he showed me a video of Evan Dando outside leaning up against the wall, shirtless, and no shoes on. And I was just like, oh yeah, I'm not seeing them. So
it was kind of a train wreck. It just wasn't a pleasant experience. It was just kind of like you just felt kind of bad. Like you felt bad for the other members of the band who were just like trying to pick up the slack, and like the drummer and bass player just seemed super frustrated with what was going on, and reasonably so. And I don't know. After that show, I was just kind of like, I mean, he's got his own shit. Like he's been dealing with this shit for many years, and it's just like I'm not going to buy a ticket anymore. And a friend of mine who my friend Mike Williamson was at the Jawbreaker show. We went together, and he was just like, "Oh, it was cool. It was like a punk show. It was like seeing the Replacements back in the day or whatever." I'm like, I don't know. It wasn't really like that to me. But he went to see him, Evan, like last week, I think, in Hollywood somewhere doing solo, and he was really on the upswing and was very apologetic. He did another. Evan had done a show after the Wiltern show, a solo show that was even worse than the Jawbreaker show, apparently. And last week at that show, he was apologizing for that, said he had been in rehab, and like and my friend said it was a really great show. So that's it. But I don't regret not going, and whatever. It's just not my thing now.
Yeah.
But I mean, his music's great, and
no, it's always there to go back to, and that's what I say. You can be disappointed in live performances, but what brought you there, you'll always have, and it's not going to change.
For sure. Yeah.
Now,
Matthew Sweet, I guess I've gotten into him, or I got into him later on too, and I always really liked Girlfriend album, and I really loved the song that he did on that no alternative.
that
compilation. That compilation was really huge for me. That I think it was, what was it, Super Deformed? That song was great. Yeah. And
it also had Counting Crows' greatest song they ever wrote.
Oh, too. Einstein on the Beach. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the other comp. That was the DGC Rarities comp, and that was that was great too. Both those
comps were big.
Were great. Yeah. That's great. Yes, that Counting Crows song is pretty awesome.
Now, what led you to let's go back to the origin of the Pretty Flowers? How did this all come to be, and you be 2 full lengths in now and a covers album and doing everything? Why don't you let us all behind the curtain on how this became what it is today?
It kind of started as a solo project. I was in a band called the Henry Clay People for a few years, and they wound up doing some national tours that I wasn't really able to do. So I kind of just I wound up just kind of leaving the band for a while, still on good terms with everybody back then, and like so they were kind of out doing these national tours for a few years, and my contribution to Henry Clay People, I had written a few songs, and I'd collaborated with Joey Ciara, who was the singer of the band, and it was his band, and we had collaborated on some stuff, and I'd contributed a few songs, and then so when they were out on these national tours, I was just kind of at home and working my day job and in LA, and I just started messing around on GarageBand and just putting some songs down, and I had thought of the name Pretty Flowers from a while back, and just started using it as kind of the name of the project of these songs. And I was never really a prolific songwriter. Like it kind of takes a while, and I kind of don't go chasing inspiration. I just kind of whenever it comes, I'll sit down and do a song and kind of try and flesh it out as much as possible. But it wasn't like I was sitting on like a bunch of songs, but I had written a few songs, and one of the songs I had sent to the guys in Henry Clay People on while they were on tour, and just to share it. And then I guess they liked it a lot and wanted to have the song on the next Henry Clay People record. And that was a song called Backseat of a Cab that was on their 25 for the Rest of Our Lives album. And so I kind of rejoined the band for recording, and we recorded that album together. And then they went on another tour that recorded that. Sorry about that. There was another. We recorded that album, and then they went on a tour for that, and I just kind of continued writing songs with As Pretty Flowers, and got a couple friends together to kind of just to practice. I didn't really know if it was even going to be a live thing, but the band was a trio for a while, and then it just kind of grew. We got Sam Tiger joined the band on bass, and that's kind of when the band kind of became a little more serious. And Jake, the guitar player, he was the producer for the band. He was working on our first record with us when we were a trio. It was me, Sam, and Eli Reyes on drums, and Jake was recording the album. I can't remember how long it took. It was kind of we were kind of recording it really sporadically at his home studio, and Jake he just became really involved in the band, and we had written a lot of guitar parts that we realized that those guitar parts needed to be in the live component of the band. And so he really liked the songs a lot and wound up joining the band as the fourth member. And that kind of helped me out a lot because playing in a trio, it feels like there's just so much pressure on everybody, and singing and playing guitar, and it's a lot easier to do when there's someone else playing guitar with you, backing you up. I think that's why, Nirvana brought Pat Smear in, and why trios become four pieces at some point a lot of the time.
And there's usually one on stage that you don't see either.
Like Jawbreaker or Green Day or the Cribs. Actually, I remember seeing the Cribs, and that guy was really hidden behind the curtain.
I've seen so many different bands where it's like, man, the first time I see them, I can't believe they get that fucking amazing sound from just three people on stage. And then next time I see him, I'm up top in a VIP section, and I see some guy behind a bunch of amps in this little corridor just playing guitar, and I'm like, oh motherfucker, there he is.
For sure. So we recorded the album. We were playing a bunch of shows, and then Sean Johnson joined the band a few months before we had our record release show for Why Trains Crash in 2018. Our Eli Reyes, our previous drummer, left. It just wasn't really working out, and Sean was a friend of of most of us from way back in the music scene, and I always thought he was just a phenomenal drummer and super fun to watch live. And he was in a good place in between bands that he was able to say yes, he could try it out for a while, and he was just a perfect fit. And it's been the four of us since 2018. I guess it's almost it's like 6 years. 6 years, almost
6 to 7 years. Yeah,
almost to the month or something. So yeah,
awesome. When you start something as this solo thing to keep yourself busy and writing songs, and then you start changing members and bringing it to where it is today 6 years later, when you were creating music just on your own to creating music with others, what was the biggest challenge for you when moving forward to say, okay, this isn't just all about me anymore?
Well, it wasn't really I didn't really think of it as like a thing until we were playing music together. It wasn't really like I never really had any like I didn't feel like it was a solo project, and I think I still like, and I really do like having a feel of like bringing a song that I have in my head that once it's realized, it's like something different than I didn't really imagine it being, and I really like that everybody else's contribution to the songs that I write to kind of put them in a different place. That I really like that feeling, and the idea that just how much music can change by other people's input.
Nice. Now, when you grew up, do you remember a specific moment where you kind of realized that music was something different than something in the background? Like, did you hear something as a child that immediately made your ears perk up and be like, wait, this is something that I'm not ready for, but it just led you down that path of wanting to find music and having music be a part of your life?
Yeah, I mean, my relationship with music was kind of weird. My dad was a drummer, and my mom was kind of I mean, my mom could sing pretty well. She had a really good voice, but my dad's like musical. He grew up playing in bands and stuff, but his like he really was set in the bands he was like into in high school. So it was like he really never really he never got super into music, which was kind of weird. Like I couldn't really look to my dad to like teach me about like a lot of bands. I mean, he there was a lot of bands that, I mean, obvious stuff like Beatles or whatever, and like I don't know, he was into like a lot of blues rock stuff like Paul Butterfield Blues Band and stuff like that. But a lot of the stuff was confined to like a certain time in his life. So I didn't really get a lot of, and there wasn't a lot of friends that I had that were like older who could expose me to a lot of music. Like there was a lot of punk stuff that I mean, that I didn't hear until late. I mean, I don't think I heard the Misfits till I was like 20 or something like that. Like there was just nobody I grew up in a small town, and there just wasn't a lot of cool people that I knew listening to good music. I mean, it was really like my exposure was like stuff that was on MTV, and like, I mean, the Misfits were never mentioned on MTV or anything like that. I mean, I was into like 120 Minutes and all that stuff, but there was, I mean, and also like one of my exposure to my feeling about bands was kind of weird, and it was like it just felt like something that like was just a really far away thing. It didn't feel like it was something that I could just do for whatever reason. Like it, and also it was like if I saw a band on MTV, or if I saw a band's album that could be ordered from BMG or Columbia House or whatever, you know, I just felt like that they were like they were just like king shits. They were making money. They were doing like, that was like this huge thing. And
they were all gazillionaires, and
yeah.
It was unattainable for the normal people, and,
Totally.
that's why I think I always go back to Nirvana and Green Day they broke the mold. They said anyone can do this. Look, if we can do it, you sure as fuck can do it.
Yeah, and I did get to see Nirvana a couple times when I was really young, which was really amazing. My dad took me and some friends to see Nirvana at the Cow Palace in outside of San Francisco.
That's awesome.
And they did a benefit for Bosnian rape victims, and that was the show it was like L7, The Breeders, Disposable Heroes of Hypocrisy, think there was someone else on that show. L7 Breeders and Nirvana and Nirvana, but it was yeah, that was a pretty cool, that was really great, but it was also, it did seem like, I mean, it was in such a big place, it still didn't seem like it was something that I could do. I mean,
Yeah.
it still seemed really unattainable and far away. I mean, they still seemed like a huge band, and I didn't know how they, I didn't really have any context for how they got there. I didn't know about punk rock. I didn't really know like about a punk rock scene or stuff like that. So I was still really coming at Nirvana from like MTV. Like that was my access point to them. But I think the bands that I was really into like early on were like Primus was a really big band for me. I think they're like a really great gateway band for like middle school kids to get into like punk rock. They were really big, and they were kind of like, they were, at the time they felt like they were like a local band. They were kind of like on a bigger level, but they were still, they still felt kind of like underground, and they were really fun. They had like I mean, they were like, I mean, they just appealed to a younger age group. And there were a lot of other bands at the time that I was into that were just kind of, that were just weird, that I just kind of like discovered with a friend. I mean, Dead Kennedys was a big band that I really liked a lot. There was like Mr. Bungle was another band. I mean, kind of on the level with Primus of just like appealing to like middle school kids.
It's different and fun, and like
Yeah,
funny stuff goes on with it. Yeah, I mean,
totally. And then there was like some weird, like Ministry was for some reason, they were a big band that and Skinny Puppy. And then there was this band on Alternative Tentacles called Alice Donut, who I was
yeah,
just these like really dark, like heavy bands that
they were Alice Donut was one of those bands that to me always shocked me that it never made it, especially during that time, like because
I
they
know
were phenomenal.
they were really great, and they had their own thing, and they were more of a like a 70s rock, like loud 70s rock
Yeah,
band.
they were like a Screaming Trees. Like Screaming Trees, had such a diverse catalog, but never
Total.
really made it.
Yeah, they and Alice Donut was like a huge was they were a really big a band for me, and it was like, and nobody you'd mentioned Alice Donut, and I mean you didn't even bother mentioning Alice Donut because nobody even knew who they were. But like just something interesting, like when I met my wife, many just like, I don't know how long it's been, 20 years that I met her, but we bonded over our like being in high school and both being really big Alice Donut fans, which was like, oh my god, I found somebody who actually likes
found the
Alice
other
Donut.
person.
I found the other person. But yeah, I think we were I was attracted to the kind of the weirdness of those bands, and like the darkness, because there's a lot of darkness in Alice Donut, like especially the Untidy Suicides of Your Degenerate Children album, and that was like the one that I really liked.
Yeah, you brought up Skinny Puppy. They're my favorite dark band. Like
Are they?
oh yeah, they were. It was one of those things where it just almost reminded you of nightmares, like when you put
Totally.
on their music, and that was for me. I mean, I think I found Skinny Puppy in like 92 or 93. I was in high school, and I just saw the cover of a CD in my local record store, and it was like in the used section or whatever, and so it was cheap, and I bought it, and I went in, I put it on, and I never heard anything like that. Yeah, like I had heard of Ministry and stuff, but this was just on another fucking level.
All the samples, and just like it was nightmare inducing, but they just made weird dark music. Like
they also had an awesome song on, what was it? Suburbia. Do you remember the Suburbia album?
I don't.
It was the movie soundtrack for Suburbia. That
Oh. I can't think of it right now. The album Last Rites was the one that was like
Yeah.
was the one I was super into, and I've been meaning to like revisit that, but I kind of I don't know how well it holds up, but I should go back and listen to it. But yeah, I was attracted to like a lot of just some weird stuff. I think it's like it's like whatever you had access to. It was like I didn't go out looking for this stuff. It was just like, CDs were super expensive. There was also you didn't know what was good and what was bad if you didn't have anyone like recommending stuff to you or making you mixtapes. It was kind of just like whatever somehow fell into your lap, you like listened to and you became a fan of it just because you didn't have that much stuff to listen to and you had the cassette or the CD and you just listened to it over and over and over again. I mean,
You
I
were
was just
forced to ingest it, and that's
for sure.
that's where I think sometimes now the fucking Alexa skip kind of thing fucking it pisses me off so much because a lot of us, I'm surrounded by CDs, records, tapes all the time, and it's like I love all of it because I had to ingest it all.
Yeah.
If someone hands me something and I get to, or sends me something and I get to just hit, I don't like that song and go to the next one. You didn't really have that opportunity ever to do that. So you were forced to just be like, find the good in it. And then what started out as something that you really had a tough time listening to eventually became one of your favorite albums.
Yeah. It's really funny. I just picked up on vinyl the 10,000 Maniacs album, In My Tribe, which I was like, I just saw that sitting there. It was like $3 or $4 or something, and I was like, I have to get that. I was like, I'm remembering like riding my bike around when I was like 12 years old with this cassette and just listening to it over and over and over again and being like, I don't think I even like this, but it was like it was the only thing. For some reason, I just like forced myself to try to just like to listen to it and listen to it and listen to it. I still think it's okay, but like it was just weird that I don't know. I was like 12 years old trying to make myself into a 10,000 Maniacs fan.
It was really hard to do.
Someone gave me a cassette, and I was just like just listening to it as much as I could, just because I had time, and you're in the summer, you just have a lot of time on your hands, and some stuff just sticks with you.
No, that's what I always do. I still to this day, and from being a small kid and starting it, like remembering my, what was the album of that summer, and this past year I'm still in close to pushing on 50 years old, and I still have a summer album, I still have a fall album, I still like something occupies my seasons, which is it's crazy to me, but at the same time it's something I still love. I still love to say, like this past summer Versus the World's album was my summer album. I just wouldn't turn it off. When I got in my car, it just made me feel good when I put it on and put the windows down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was an album that, well, actually, I think a band that maybe, let's see. So once I got really into, like punk through like, or like the punk scene in the San Francisco Bay Area with Lookout Records. It was just a very close thing. I loved, I mean, like Mr. T Experience was like a huge band for me at the time. They were just another just like band that appeals to younger kids. They kind of got me into a lot of the other Lookout stuff. And this was also at a time where like Operation Ivy had broken up, but they had probably broken up like 2 years before I got into like this but before I started getting into Lookout stuff. And it seemed like they had been like not a band for like a decade. Like it just seemed like that was such a long time ago. You're just like your sense of time, I guess, when you're just like when you're a teenager is like like the Dead Kennedys. Like I mean, I guess we're talking like 90 for me, like 94 or something like that, 93, 94. And then thinking about bands that had already broken up, and it just seemed like, I mean, Dead Kennedys, what did they break up in the late 80s? So
Yeah.
like, and that still, it just felt like it was a million years ago. It just felt like they were they were like as old as like they had broken up at the same time as like Led Zeppelin or something. Like it was just, there was no, or the Beatles. It was just like it just seemed like 2 or 3 years prior could have been, a decade ago. And so I just got really into Lookout stuff. I was going to Lookout shows, and there was the Bottom of the Hill in San Francisco had all ages shows. I mean, there wasn't a lot of all ages opportunities, all ages shows that were happening at that time. There was like a Sunday show at Bottom of the Hill around that time that I was in high school, and I had a car, and or friends had a car, and we could go to these like matinee shows at Bottom of the Hill where we could see.
Yeah, I was gonna say, were they like 3:00? Because I remember my all ages shows were like 3:00.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they were definitely early. They were like 3 or something like that. And it was like I would see Knapsack. I remember seeing them a bunch. There was a band called Crumb in that scene that I really liked, and Engine 88, and there was another band. Oh, well, I don't know if I saw them there, but Creeper Lagoon was like a really big band that for me that I really loved a lot.
Wow,
and,
you're like only the second person I've ever heard mention Creeper Lagoon being.
They were like I think
I love them, and
oh my god, they're
fucking amazing.
We wanted to have, and we looked into having Ian Sefcik master a company sleeve, but I think maybe we're going to have him master the next thing. We might try that, but I just love, I love his voice. I love his songs, and I think the album I Become Small and Go was like, is probably the album I've listened to more than any other album, and in my lifetime. And I just think they were just an incredibly underrated band, and just the textures and the production of like what the Dust Brothers did with that record is just incredible. And I never get sick of listening to that record. Just absolutely love it.
So who's your favorite Lookout artist?
I mean, Green Day is probably my favorite. I think they hold up. They hold up the best. I mean, Sam I Am, they just put out a 7-inch, but I don't know if they're super considered a Lookout band, but Sam I Am is what was one of my favorites.
Yeah, I just saw that.
I mean, Ted Leo. Ted Leo. I mean, are we talking later era?
Yeah.
I mean, Mr. T Experience was probably what was one of the biggest bands for me for a long time. They are like I've listened to a lot of their stuff, and I lately, and I think that And the Women Who Love Them is still my favorite period of Mr. T Experience.
Yeah,
but they don't have the same impact that they once did.
No, mine's definitely 15 was my favorite.
Okay.
Like still and forever and will always be. 15 was
Yeah.
I don't know what I think maybe it was just the lyricism and singing about like they were really conveying a message, and they worked really hard at it. And the fact that, I'll mention that name to a lot of people and no one knows ever who the fuck I'm talking about. And I'm like, it's such a tragedy that you don't. And I'm like, I guess maybe it just got me when I needed it most, but
For sure.
everything that they ever did, that's my band from Lookout Forever.
Cool. Yeah. Surprise was the album of theirs that I listened to probably most. I really liked it. And because I think it was like, it had just come out when that was the first album of theirs that I heard. And then I think I went back to the Lookout stuff after that. But yeah, I remember going to the Lookout. I guess it was the 10th anniversary back then. But that was a super fun weekend. That was really big for me, going to all those Lookout shows, or seeing all those Lookout bands on the 10th anniversary. I think they did it at like Gilman and and Bottom of the Hill, or they were at a bunch of different locations. But that was a super fun time of my life. I think I was either a senior or I had just graduated high school when that happened.
Nice. Let's get into a question about the Pretty Flowers, where it's you have one opportunity to make an impression on someone with your music, so you can only pick one of your songs to play for them. What one of your songs would you play for them?
Hit Nothing, I think. I'm pretty proud of that song, and I think it has there's a couple different moods to it. I think there's a good guitar solo in it that I really like to play, and that song just kind of has a different feel. It's not really it's hard to kind of pin down like what genre it is. I mean, I guess it's an indie rock song, but it has more of to me it feels like it's a little more new wave or something like that. It kind of touches something different. It's not like a power pop song necessarily, but I think that's one that I would share with somebody first to kind of give an idea.
Would you also say that's your favorite song you've ever released, or do you have a different one that you would say is your favorite that you've released to date?
I mean, I think The Long Con is one that is I'm pretty proud of lyrically, and just and like how that song came together. I think that was one of the first ones that when Sean had joined the band that we had written, and that one just came together in a really good way. So I have good memories of like recording it and thinking of, and kind of just like the song coming together. I think that's a pretty good example of like of the band and as well.
Now, do you have a memory of, say a performance or a moment in time that lived surrounded by music that just lives rent free in your head and is just, for good or bad, it's just never going to go away?
Of seeing a show?
Of you, playing a show, performing, doing something.
What would that be? Let's see. But there was a bunch of shows with the Roxy's last year, and that whole tour was just super fun. It wasn't like, I mean, the show we did with them at Permanent Records Roadhouse was a ton of fun. They had a lot of friends come out. We had a lot of friends come out, and Roxy's are from Germany, and so they had gotten in touch with us to do they wanted to come over to do a West Coast tour, and they got in touch with us through our old label, Dirt Cult Records, and most of the like all the shows that we played were super fun. It was like that was just a really great tour. Like all together, it was just, they're just really amazing people, and we just all bonded really well. And all of those shows, I think the culminating show, the tour ending show that we did at the at Permanent Records was just a really great cap to that tour, and I think about that one a lot.
Now, did you ever go to a show and stand back and say, wow, I'm not doing the same thing that they're doing. Why am I doing what I'm doing? That doubt of going to see someone so goddamn good that you're just like stand back and be like, I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Not really. I mean, I am not a very competitive person, like at all. Like I don't really look at other bands and be like, oh my God, like I fucking suck. These guys are they know what they're doing. Like I don't really know that anybody really knows exactly what they're doing. I mean, I've been to shows where it was like, I've seen, like, I remember going to see a Faith No More show when I was a kid and standing back on the Angel Dust tour and just being like, this is fucking another level of, I don't even know what this is. This is just insane. And this is so fun. And just like, but I never was like, that could be me, or I could be doing something like Mike Patton. It was like, it was just a great, it was just a really good experience. But I mean, I love seeing bands, and I love seeing bands playing live. I mean, I do like seeing bands doing or artists doing something new, kind of with a live show. Like I saw Feist a few weeks ago here in LA, and she's doing her Multitudes. She's like doing the second part of her Multitudes tour, and that was like one of the greatest shows I've ever been to. There was just like, it was just so imaginative and so visual, and there was just so much going on and so creative. And that actually made me a little jealous, that it was just like, this is just what, I mean, everyone can't do this, but it was like, it looked like it was done on a budget, but it was like big. It just looked like they did so much with the tools that they had to make this this like personal experience for like everyone at the show. It was just, it was a really amazing. I just had like a huge smile on my face at the end of the show. It was just amazing.
Well, you've gone through a lot of shows that you've been to, so I'm anxious to find out what the very first show live concert you ever saw was?
Well, the first like big live show I saw was Tom Petty on the Full Moon Fever tour with Lenny Kravitz opening, and that was a really great show.
That's sick.
I'm very very stoked to have been my first like real show. I mean, I went to there was a local band. I think before that I had seen like there was this local band. I grew up in a town called Novato, and there was a local band called Nuclear Rabbit, who was just a very much like if you took like Mr. Bungle and Primus and like just put them in a blender of like Bay Area in like 1989, you would come up with this like these teenagers of Nuclear Rabbit, and they were a big band to me. Who when I was in like middle school, they were pretty awesome, and I got to see them a few times at local shows. But outside of local shows, the Tom Petty show was my first like concert.
That's awesome. That's trumps anything I could have ever thrown.
What was your first show?
Kenny Rogers.
Kenny Rogers. Oh, that's cool. Was it? It was not cool.
No, it's not cool. Not cool for for a young kid who didn't want to go see Kenny Rogers with his parents and sister. But yeah, no, Kenny Rogers was my first one.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Well, mine could have been like New Kids on the Block at the at Great America or something with my sister, but it was not.
How about in your life? Do you have a band that you know, we talk about listening to music when you don't know what you want to listen to, it just kinds of seems to be the band that you always turn to. You know, it's the band that never lets you down. So like when I'm doom scrolling and in the middle of doom scrolling, I'll just put on a certain band that I know I absolutely love while I try to find something else to listen to. Do you have any band in your life like that?
Are you familiar with Julian Cope from
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So Teardrop Explodes was a band, Julian Cope and Teardrop Explodes, a band that I kind of discovered, I don't know, like before, I don't know, 2020 or maybe 2019, something like that. And they were just a huge blind spot in my music. But I think my wife had Julian Cope come up on a playlist or something, and she was really into it and was like, "Hey, you should check this out." And it was like, "Hey, this is like the perfect music. This is like exactly what I want to listen to, and this is exactly like what I didn't know that I was looking for. Like everything about them." And I got really obsessed with Julian Cope and read his both of his autobiographies and just collected all of his music. And I just really love Teardrop Explodes. And there's a lot of different eras of Julian Cope that I think kind of can fit a mood for me. So that I find myself playing a lot of Julian Cope music.
I like how you put that, because I've used that plenty of times in life where I'm like, it's everything I never knew I always wanted.
Yeah, totally. And he's just such a great character. I love the psychedelia that he puts in his music, and yeah, he's a personal hero.
Do you own any like music memorabilia, or say an album or a poster or something in your life that is like it's the thing that you're never going to get rid of?
I do have like an original Grateful Dead at the Avalon poster from, I think it's 69, I guess, or yeah, that my dad had saved for many, many years and gave to me, and I have that framed. That's a pretty big one. I also have a poster of his band playing in Davis when he was a teenager with the Youngbloods, I think, and I don't know, some other Bay Area bands of the 60s.
That's pretty badass.
It's a really cool poster too. It's like, I think it's a black light. Well, it would probably look good under black light.
Nice.
But I'm glad I have that poster.
All right. Meteor's going to crash into the earth. You have 5 minutes left to live, and you have to listen to one song. What song are you listening to?
Jawbreakers, Like a Secret.
Wow.
How about that?
Wow. Well done. Okay. That's I like that.
Yeah,
like that a lot.
I was listening to that. I was listening to that album. What album was that? That's Bivouac. I was listening to Bivouac
Yep.
just all the way through on a run a few weeks ago, and that song came on. I was like, Jesus, this album is so good. I always go back and forth with like what my favorite album is, and it's like it's always between that. It's always between 24 Hour and
Yeah. 24 hours mine.
yeah.
without a doubt.
That's usually that's mine. But then when I was listening to Bivouac, that just a little while ago, I was like, maybe this is my favorite album.
Yeah,
But
Bivouac doesn't get enough love. It really doesn't. It's like the forgotten album by Jawbreaker.
Yeah, 24 Hour was like kind of a real kind of a life-changing album for me. I got seeing them, and like they kind of felt like they were they were like an accessible band in that they felt like real people and not like rock stars, or they were super. It was what they were doing felt like something that I could kind of do. So that was they were amazing, and like just whatever music they were making, it just felt like it just felt so real, and like it I saw them on the 24 like the very end of the 24 Hour Revenge Therapy tour at the Phoenix Theater in Petaluma, and that show was like I think I can credit that as being like a life-changing show for me. Like I was like I after that show I wrote like a fan letter to them and got like I'd never been compelled to do that. Like I never felt like it would even like writing to a band would ever even get any like would even reach them. Like that's how much that like the bands I was listening to just felt so inaccessible. But they like I remember I got like a postcard from I still have it. It was like I got a postcard from Adam like a couple weeks later that was just like, hey, cool, thanks for the props. Great, we'll see you on the next tour or something like that. So it was
those moments are unbelievable. I've been blessed to have many moments like that here, especially on the show and talking to artists and older artists that I absolutely loved, and they were huge rock stars to me.
Mhm.
But they were never rock stars to anybody else. So it was always that like I never knew they were just normal people. You know, I never knew that they were just like, yeah, man, I'm not who you think our band wasn't what you think it was. I'm glad that it meant that to you, but we never reached the heights that you're holding in your hearts that we did,
Mhm.
and I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right. But it's also at the same time, like to me, it was always, fuck, man, these guys I'll never be able to talk to this person. We'll have nothing in common. And it's just like, no, they're just normal people enjoying, loving music. And yeah, some break out and become major stars, and other ones are just major stars in your head,
Yeah, and most of the time those artists were holding down day jobs while like while you were thinking that
Yep.
they were rock stars and stuff.
They go home and they're delivering pizzas because that's all they could get because they were out on tour, making no money.
And it's been like that since since forever.
Forever.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's just kind of the music business.
Well, before we move into our last segment, because I know it's morning time by you, but now talking about trying to make money and trying to do things, I'd love to give you this opportunity right now to tell everybody how to find out what it is you're doing and how they can help purchase your material, because again, that's what we try to get people to understand. The only way any band that isn't funded by $1 million backer, the only way they can ever possibly even break even is if you help them out and purchase some of their stuff directly.
Yeah, our Bandcamp is probably the best way to, listen to the music and buy merch if you're into it. I mean, I ship out all our all our merch. We have LPs, we have shirts, and we have running shorts. We have a few runners in the band, and we have Pretty Flowers running shorts now. We have Yeah, Bandcamp is probably the best way. You can buy the download tracks and you know typical stuff. We have we're actually I'm watching the FedEx package for our Flexies. We put out a single called Police Me, and we're printing Flexies, and we're hoping to have them in time for South by Southwest. So I'm patiently refreshing the FedEx delivery page to make sure that we get those so I can bring them to South by Southwest. But we have those. Those are like, I don't know, $5 or $6. And come to a show. That's probably that's another good way, is to just come support live music and support live music in your scene where you can, and make it so bands can tour and play shows, play shows on the weekend, or book week long tours. That's how to do it, or just stream it. If you are into records, if you're into vinyl, the vinyl's there to purchase. If you don't do vinyl, just download it, or stream it. I kind of gave up on trying to break even with merch and with records and stuff a little while ago. So it's like, just do what you can, support where you can. This is not what we're not making money off of money off of the band, but that's fine. That's just how it is.
It is how it is in the industry now. But so we're going into our final segment right now. It's our weekly threes. It's 3 things that you're listening to that you'd like people to check out. You give your 3, then I give my 3.
Okay, what have I been listening to? Prefab Sprout, an old band, an 80s. I think they're British. I don't know, maybe they're Welsh or something, but UK band, Prefab Sprout. Their album Steve McQueen and From Langley Park to Memphis are really good albums. What else? I've been listening to a lot of Sonic Youth lately after reading the Thurston Moore autobiography, which is highly recommended. And the album Rather Ripped, I think that's might be my favorite. Oh, changes, but for right now, Rather Ripped is my favorite Sonic Youth record. So say Prefab Sprout, Sonic Youth's Rather Ripped, and how about Always Blue Rev? Is that the name of it? The last Blue Rev? Yes. There was that Granddaddy album that came out very recently that is like a very similar title. So I'm hope I'm not getting those mixed up. But that Always album also.
Awesome. Good 3. All right, my 3 for this week. I am stationary on the UK for my 3. It just so happens that it turns out that all 3 bands happen to be from the UK. But the first one is a band called Goo, lowercase GOO. They have an EP called Chomp that came out recently. It's fuzzy indie punk from the UK. Really good. Next is a band called Prey Drive, and that's Prey, Prey. They have an album called All That Glitters Is Not Gold. They're just a awesome, very tight rock band from England. And last but not least, from the UK as well, is a band called Jet Ski. It's one word, Jet Ski.
Uh-huh.
The 4 Before is the name of the EP, and I'd say they're like indie emo-ish, awesome music from the UK.
Cool. I will check out all 3 of those. I'm not familiar.
I hope you enjoy them.
Okay.
I hope somebody enjoys them. That's why if I find some enjoyment out of it, somebody else has to as well.
Yeah,
So.
that's all you can do.
But Noah, thank you so very much. Firstly, for creating the amazing music that brought us together. That, without that, we probably never would have met or talked. But when I find something that I enjoy, that I like, that I think stands out, that's when I want to talk to the artist that create it, because it's special and it means a lot. It means a lot to me, and I know it's got to mean a lot to other people out there. They just don't have the same platforms I do to tell you. But thank you so much for all that you've done for me with your music. So thank you.
I really appreciate that. That's really, really nice to hear, and very much appreciate you.
Well, everybody, you know what time it is now. It's time to go out, listen to the pretty flowers, and have a great fucking time.
When you're making up your two faces in the mirror, and that silly sad reflection ain't much clearer. It don't sit right with you. Don't sit right with you. You know that nothing's gonna keep it together. You know that something's gonna tear it apart. 6 months is enough of a long time to shine a little light in the dark. You know you shine a little light in the dark. You shine a little light in the dark. Kick in the television, open up the blind. A shadow room plays tricks on your mind. Kick in the television, open up the blind. A shadow room plays tricks on your mind. You know that nothing's gonna keep it together. You know that something's gonna tear it apart. 6 months is enough of a long time to shine a little light in the dark. You know you shine a little light in the dark. Shine a little light in the dark. Kick in the television, open up the blind. A shadow room plays tricks on your mind. Kick in the television.
Thanks again for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's show. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at HiddenTracks99. Also, send all your submissions myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Tune in next week. You may find your new favorite band, and don't forget to go out and have a great fucking time.